Hey guys, welcome to episode 3, I guess, on the return of our podcast. We've got a special guest on today, Shane, who's Corey's dad. We've brought him on because we sort of use him as our resource for running advice. Corey and I have been trainers for a long time, but we're not experts in running. We've sort of just recently entered the realm of running, and yeah, he's definitely the guy we go to when we've got all the questions or tips, tricks, and advice when it comes to how to plan our running, how to sort of face some of the adversity that you sort of run into as well as you run.
Yep. So I guess this podcast is sort of getting a little bit of the backstory, and then also going through some sort of tips and tricks that have been learnt over the years that are going to help, I guess, runners at all levels, but particularly beginner runners on their journey. So welcome.
Thank you.
Our
Great
first
to be here.
First proper guest.
First proper guest, that's not just another trainer.
Yeah.
So before we, I guess, get into, all of the suggestions, maybe advice you could give on running, getting into it, what's your origin story? So when did you get into running? How did you get into running? And what did the early years look like?
So I started, so I played tennis through my sort of childhood and early adult years, and I played for about 25 years, and then I did a disc in my neck. Couldn't play tennis for at least 9 months, just recovering from that. So I started running with a group at work just to get out lunchtime and sort of do some physical exercise while I was recovering from the neck injury. And there was no real structure to it. We used to just go out and do an easy run, and so I found out that I really enjoyed it, and at that point it was no sort of going back to tennis at that point. It was just running was my new passion, and in those early years it was really just unstructured, just going out for an easy jog, maybe 20k a week maximum. One of the guys that I was at part of that running group introduced me to a running group in the city, a lunchtime running group called the Melbourne Midday Milers, and I joined up with them in 2006, just went down for a lunchtime session. There was 30 or 40 guys down there. So that was what really got me started serious running in 2006. Structured programs during the week. It wasn't just easy running, it was a mixture of speed sessions, short reps, longer reps, long weekend runs with the group. So it was really that sort of group structured program that, and I found out I was actually pretty good at it. For the first time when I was only in my early 40s at that stage, that I realised I was actually a pretty good runner. That led into sort of joining an athletics club, started running cross countries and road races and track races, and found out I was pretty fast, and that sort of then led on to having a passion to realised that I could train for marathons, run a marathon. I'd already run a marathon in 2004 when I was really sort of just getting into running and didn't have that sort of understanding of how to train for one and how to sort of prepare properly, and it was an absolute nightmare. 3 hours 36 for me. I thought I would run a bit quicker than that, but 3 hours 36, but I just blew up big time and just hit the wall, and we'll talk a bit about that later. But once I joined this running club and they taught me how to train properly and prepare properly, that was when I sort of got the passion to run marathons, and I just continued to improve. I was running my best probably between 2008 and 2013, sort of mid to late 40s. Run my best, quickest from track races through to marathons. That was my quickest sort of years, but got to the late 40s, and that's when I started slowing down. Just couldn't hit those paces anymore, and we are where we are today. Just about to hit 60, but still got a passion for it, but just with different goals and different motivations.
Yeah. So I guess you've gone through sort of a bit of the history and the transition and what's sort of happened over the years. In terms of, I guess, a bit of a brag, what would you say was maybe your most significant race for you, or the one that stands out to you as sort of one of your favourites?
Well, there's a couple, a few. I'll talk about five. First marathon, which was the one that was 3 hours 36, was...
And that's supposed to be a slow time.
That was a slow time. We'll get to that. For me, that was just an achievement, right? 42.2 kilometres.
Just getting it done first.
Just getting through it and finishing it. I sort of floated on air for weeks after that. And then anyone that does their first marathon probably has that same feeling. But then when I started to know how to run, know how to train, do the right sort of training, and prepare for a marathon properly, my second marathon, which was in 2010, so just 6 years later, I ran 2 hours 2:43, like 53 minutes quicker, so that was a massive achievement, because it just showed me what you could do with the right preparation and right training at age, what was I then, 44. So then I had this vision of, can I do a sub 240, right? That was the next sort of target. Like, I'd smashed my first one, but then I was so close to sub 240, which is probably another sort of level up. So I had 3 attempts at that. The following year, which is still my quickest time, was at 2:41 at Melbourne, 3 minutes 50 per K. That's probably my best race in terms of long distance. And in leading into that year, leading into that marathon, I ran PBs over 5, 10, half marathon, and then the marathon, just all sort of my best times at age 45, which I'm pretty proud of. So I missed the sub 240, but I was, again, pretty close to it, 241. So I had 2 more goes at it. I went to Canberra the following year and Gold Coast the year after that, and 243, just never got there.
So is there certain tracks you reckon that make a big difference to your ability to do that?
I think I'd probably just hit my limit. It was 3 minutes 50 per K for the 241 that I did is, I think I'm trying to think about doing that now for 1K, and it's just a mind blower.
Yeah.
So to be able to do it over 42, but yeah, just couldn't get that. Just the body. I don't think I'd been running for 6, 7 years at that stage, at a high level for my age, and but yeah, just didn't have, I suppose, the physical makeup to go to the sub 240. But I'm happy with that. 241, I'm really happy with. 2 more. The 100K that I did, which was the ultra marathon Oxfam, that was 13 hours 50. It was a lot slower than we expected to go. The guys that I was running with had all done like 10 and a half, 11 hour, over 100. But it was a warm day, and my body just sort of in that sort of 30K to 70K middle of the day, hot sun, just didn't cope. Body cramps for 40Ks, just mentally just getting through that, pickle juice and walking and stuff. But then to be able to run the last 30Ks, once it cooled down, I was able to start running again, and we finished really strong. So that was a big achievement. And the last one, my best track race ever, was a 1,500 metre. I ran for Athletes Waverley Club, and we made the finals in 2013 for the Athletics Victoria state finals. And I was in a race there was another guy from Waverley, one of my running mates, against 2 guys from Box Hill. 38 degrees in the early afternoon at Albert Park track. And we just had the 3 3/4 laps, 1,500 metres. We just had just this best race. There was lead changes. It was high paced. I PB'd by over a second. 4 minutes 16.3, which is 2:51 pace for 3 3/4 laps of an athletics track in the heat. Came second, so I didn't win, but still fresh in my mind, just reliving that sort of race at a really high level, which was a great memory.
Yeah, those are
Insane.
insane. If you know the numbers, if you can break down those numbers and
Because
look up.
that, like, just to give people context, the average person is doing, for them to even complete a sub 4-hour marathon is a very good achievement. And the average person's doing their training runs at like probably 5:30 to 6 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I think my best ever run was a 5K, which I managed in doing 4 minutes per K, and that was I nearly threw up after that. And I'm a bit taller, I've got longer legs, so do that for a whole marathon, but also quicker than that is insane.
I've got a question before we move on.
Yeah, go for it.
Where sort of like, what was the turning point for you where you realised you were good at it? Because you said you'd done your first marathon, then you joined this athletics track, this athletics team. What was that? When was there a certain race, or like, is there a moment you realised like?
Yeah, it was during the training. Like we'd go out and run 5 1K reps and 8 500s. A lot of it was around the tan in the city, and I'd be able to do a 1K, 5 1Ks at average 3:10, 3:05 per K, with a turning around on 4.5 minutes. So you'd have like a minute and a half break and then straight into the next one. So if you ran 3:30, you'd only get a minute break. If you ran 3:05, you had buggered and you got a bit longer break, but you had to back up and do it again. So I just found out that I was probably up the. We had some elite runners there. Like we had guys that ran 2:20 marathons in that training group. So it was a really strong group of really fast guys, new guys coming in that were, and all doing the same session. So there was a lot of drive to improve because you were trying to catch the person in front of you, trying to stay in front of the guy behind you, whatever. But I realised that I was up the front of a lot of these packs, running really strong, fast reps and getting better quicker. We raced the tan a lot, so the tan's just over 3.8 Ks. It's quite a hard track. There's a big hill, Anderson Street, and I all of a sudden was getting low 13 minutes per lap, and then I got into the 12s, and so it was able to run around the tan pretty quickly as well.
Uh-huh.
So I think it was just through that training and putting yourself through those sorts of sessions that I realised that I was actually pretty good at it.
I guess that transitions well into the next question, and you mentioned earlier around the sort of fact that you initially, it seemed like you were sort of maybe driven by improvement, and I think that's a big motivator for a lot of people.
Correct.
But then you sort of continued to run for a very long time after you'd sort of hit your peak, which was around 2010 to 2013 or whatever you said. So how do you continue to stay motivated intrinsically when maybe you're not necessarily PBing anymore, or maybe you're getting a little bit slower over time? Because I think that's the thing a lot of people struggle with any type of training.
Motivation changed. The motivation turned from trying to get faster and better and quicker to trying to help other people and achieve their goals. So in 2000, I'm just trying to think what year it was, I started to help people pacing them during runs and things like that. And there's one that sort of sticks in my mind from about 7 years ago where we just, there was a girl that was trying to get a sub 3:20 marathon, and so a few of us just, ran the Melbourne Marathon at a really easy pace for us. 3:20 was 4-minute 40s or something like that. We could run that for 50, 60 Ks without an issue. But it was about her trying to get this girt lady to achieve her goal, and we had the best time. Now, it's probably one of my most memorable marathons, was actually just enjoying it, doing it easy, but motivating someone else to achieve a sort of a lifelong goal for a massive PB for her. And I've done that a few times. So there's been different just trying to change that focus, that motivation, and sort of tick off different goals. And running was always a social thing, but it became much more of a social when I couldn't achieve it was very. When I was trying to achieve those fast times, it was very, just all about me and achieving those targets. Whereas it then just became more about, getting out there and having that sort of social interaction with people and helping others.
Yeah, so maybe like the social element helped with the competitive part initially.
Yep.
And allowed you to be pushed and to push.
Yep.
And then later on, that same social element became less around competition and more around supporting and
but also just getting out there and enjoying running.
Yeah.
Still doing the cross country seasons, doing it much slower, but just and coming to a realization that the faster years were gone, and it's really about what are you trying to achieve for that race in terms of a time, in terms of an overall season. What are you trying to get out of it, and sort of setting those, resetting your goals that way, which was ideal. And then at the moment it's about getting back to running, because I've got a back issue that's hung around for nearly 10 months. It's about my goal now is to, the motivation is to be able to get back to running and then get back to that sort of enjoyment and social interaction that I love about it.
Yep. Races that you never finished. Do you have any?
I have never DNF'd, did not finish, as a result of what I call pulling a heart muscle. Not having the intestinal fortitude to finish it, and I'm pretty proud of that.
It is a massive it's grueling, right? Like to finish distance marathon length events. It's not an easy feat.
And I'll talk a bit about how there's some questions later on where we sort of explore that a bit. But for me, it was the only time I've ever had to not finish a race was when I stupidly was doing a cross country race down at Warragul. And like over a hilly course, we were jumping ditches and fences and going through bloody forests and stuff. And it was about 2K to go, and I stepped on a pine cone that was just hidden in this long grass and just rolled my ankle really badly. Couldn't finish, and had to sort of hobble back to the finish line. And that was the only race I've ever not finished. That Oxfam was just brutal. I could have just stopped at 60, 70 Ks, but just the support and the motivation with the guys in the team sort of kept me going and stuff like that. But happy to say I've never stepped off, but I know a lot of people have, and it's a lot of it's just about having the mental strength to be able to push through the pain barrier and sort of keep going.
Do you think that's something that's trainable? Like, or do you think people just have that or don't have that? Like, what do you?
It's trainable through the training. Yeah. That's
doing the reps itself.
Doing those hard reps and over the shorter distances and getting that train. Like if you plan to run a marathon, you've got to, in the build up to that 12, 16 weeks lead up, you've got to do training that puts you in that the hard mental space as well.
Yeah.
That's critical because it's just that when you get into that, if you've done the training in that sort of mindset and sort of pushing through that mental barrier, that if you've done those sort of hard training sessions and the hard long runs, getting up into the hills in the Dandenongs and doing hard long 4-hour 35 Ks in the hills runs, you know you can do it. Whereas so I think it's training. It's like you're training yourself physically, but you're also training yourself mentally.
Yeah, I think we talk about this a bit around like getting yourself in really uncomfortable situations. I think it's very important for the mental side of things. And it's an uncomfortable physical that forces you to be uncomfortably mentally. But I think with anything, the more you put yourself in those really uncomfortable situations, the easier they get, and it changes your tolerance to it. I would say as well.
Correct. Yeah, resilience.
Do you feel like there's a crossover to the rest of life?
Yeah.
What does that look like? Because when I think you talk about being closer to the city, working, is it mostly like talk about the people in the running group? I mean, you're sort of always been in a leadership sort of role at work. Like, is that something you see the rest of the people in the running group? Are they doing similar things at work? Are they working in jobs that you think there is a transfer between, hey, this person's able to do these hard things, and then the rest of their life, is there a reflection, do you think?
I think it's different for different people, and I think you take the rest of your life into running, and I think you're right. You take what you learn in running back to the rest of your life around things like resilience and mental strength and coping mechanisms and being able to sort of draw from a group of people and improve yourself with that the support of the bigger group. For me, it was what I've sort of taken back to the rest of life is that ability to cope with hard pressures and being able to sort of tolerate things better in life because of, I think, the strengths I've got from running. But yeah, I don't think it matters what type of work you do, but I think it matters that you turn up. I think the ones that become really good runners are the ones that just keep turning up to the group and putting in the hard yards. Yeah. And that's I think that's the motivation. We've all had the same motivation. It doesn't matter which part of the city or the work we've come from. It's the motivation to come together as that group and work off each other and improve.
Do you think you could have done it without the group?
No,
absolutely no way. Yeah,
I hate running on my own.
Yeah.
The only benefits I found running on my own was putting yourself in the hurt locker and pushing through it solo is another good learning training mechanism. Yeah. Just going out with I never used to go out with music, so I'd just go out and do a 30k run around Berwick, no music, and just hated every minute of it. But it's just trying to make what's motivating to keep me going is knowing that this hard work I'm putting in now is going to pay dividends at the end of the day.
And I think I think my experience, obviously, being your son, is that I do think that sort of maybe in a real roundabout way, that mental fortitude and that strength rubs off on the people around you as well. I think generally the people you hang out with are a representation of sort of who you can become or who you become as well, because it's just the normal, right? So I think we grew up in a family, and for me, exercise has always been it's the default. It's like it's something you do, right?
Yeah.
Which is not always the case for a lot of people. Like exercise is seen as a chore or a habit to develop rather than just this is who you are, this is what you do. And so I think that element also rubs off around like hard work and determination and sort of not giving up on goals. I think it does rub off on other people when you develop that yourself, and it makes it so much easier for the people around you to also follow up and develop the same habits, because it's just seen as what is normal. That's sort of I guess you talked about never having really pulled out a race other than for like a injury during the race. But I think what I'd like to expand on a little bit is do you think there was specific maybe routines, exercises, recovery habits that you developed over time that probably assisted in never being in a situation where you did have to pull out for a physical related thing?
Preparation. And I found out the hard way in that those early years when I joined that training group in 2006, quite quickly after that I wanted to do another marathon. So all of the training I was doing, I probably overdid it in those early years to the point where I kept breaking down. I was running really fast reps. I was getting faster and quicker. Well, faster and quicker are the same thing. I was becoming a better runner, but I'd keep getting soft tissue injuries and sort of like overuse injuries. I got a stress fracture in my fibula, rotational stress fracture in 2008 or 2007, I think it was. And because I was building up, I built up too quickly. I sort of was doing too much training, doing too much racing, not recovering properly. So that was a bit of a big lesson in what not to do. So what did I do? I started doing Pilates. Just found that as soon as I built that sort of core strength muscle strength through doing that sort of cross training in Pilates. The soft tissue, I never had another soft tissue. Never in all of those extra further years of racing. I may have pinged a hammy once on the track, but that was it. But it was also that preventative maintenance, getting regular massage, myotherapy, dry needling, osteo, as part of recovering for the training, but also post-race recovery as well. Preventative maintenance for me was another big aspect of it. But also making sure I recovered well. So if we went out and did a race, not going straight back hard into training. There's a rule of thumb that you should recover 1 day for every mile of racing. So that means that if you go out and do a 10K race, you should be not doing any hard running or full rest and recovery for 6 days after that before you start building up again. So extrapolate that out for a marathon. It's probably a good month before you should be doing it again.
Is that no running at all for that?
No, it's just easy recovery runs, rest, but that sort of treatment maintenance as well. And then the other one that is probably the big one is to make sure that if you do have periods of injury where you're coming back from injury, don't go straight back to that sort of running load that you were doing before, and you've got to build back up again because you lose that running fitness. And so if I'd recover from a hamstring, I'd go straight back into a hard session regime too soon, and not build up like 10% of weeks, the sort of the norm in terms of being building back your Ks. You'd be doing a calf muscle or Achilles pain or whatever because you've started building up too quickly. So that were probably the keys: is doing some sort of cross training to help build your body strength. It's the preventative maintenance with the massages and recovery, and making sure you fully recover after going out and doing hard races or even hard training sessions. And then that that's not building up too quickly, just sort of gradual build up over time. Because it takes to be a good to run a good marathon. It takes a few years of sort of preparation, building your body up to sort of be able to cope with it.
So would you say, I guess the next question I was going to ask is around like what advice for beginners around like the things you wouldn't, or things that I guess are common mistakes people make, or the things that you've learned that you would sort of give advice to beginners? Is it that specifically, or is there anything else as well?
I think the things I'd add to that, so it is all of that.
That being sort of like the volume,
the build
making
up,
sure the build up of volume is really gradual.
Caring for yourself, recovering, and
how do you know when you're recovered? Like, what's the main thing you're looking for?
You're feeling fresh. You're able to sort of you recover from your hard runs and your sessions well. Yeah. And so you're not all, you're not continuously tired and aching.
Yeah. I think muscle pain.
Yeah.
And sense of fatigue.
Correct. Yeah. And getting plenty of sleep and all that's all part of it. But the extra things for me are training with a group. For me is the big one around. Don't just go out and do it all on your own, because you're going to lose motivation and you're going to not get the best result for yourself. So if you can organise a group, whether it be a social network you've already got, or join a running group in your area, there's plenty of them out there. That's probably, it's going to help you improve. It's going to keep you motivated. But the other big one is you don't get faster by just doing long, slow, same pace stuff. You only get faster if you start doing, some of those really key sessions, shorter stuff, but at a faster pace, at a tempo pace. So being able to, the big thing about being able to run long distances over at a quicker pace is actually doing training at those paces or quicker over longer distances as well, not necessarily the full race distance. So if you're going to do a run for the kids, which is 14 Ks or something, you've got to be able to run 5, 10K at that same pace or quicker but you can't do that from day one. You've got to build up to that. You're doing it over shorter distances as well. And all those different sorts of runs, your really fast, short stuff, your tempo, your threshold, which is sort of running at a pace where you can't hold a conversation, but you're not sort of redlining. It's sort of that, probably in the yellow zone in terms of how we equate it back to heart rate here. Being able to run in the yellow zone for 5-10K is a good way to sort of train you for that race day stuff.
Did you use a lot of those tools like early on, or did you use them later on? Talking sort of more about heart rate monitors and that sort of stuff. Like
I've always run to feel. I think it's something you learn in terms of being able to.
That's something I'm struggling with. Just so I know we've talked about it. Just knowing what pace you're doing. I've just got to keep looking at my watch to see what pace I'm doing.
Yeah.
And it changes. If I'm aiming for a certain pace, and that's not necessarily what's comfortable for me, I've got to be on top of just looking at it to make sure I'm there.
Yep. Yeah, I was probably like that early on, but I think it's one of those things that it's not a habit, but you can actually you get to a certain point where you know what pace you're running and what's comfortable, and that if you and it based on what fitness level you're at that point in time. If you kick it up a notch, that you're going to then get to the point where you're redlining and it's too fast, so you need to ease it off. Yeah. Having said that, all of the marathons I've done, I've really, for myself, and not everyone does it, I've sort of had a 5K split goal. That sort of try and hit those every 5K sort of split. To hit a certain time based on where my final time needs to be. So not tracking every K, but sort of knowing that at the end of each 5K,
you're supposed to be here.
I need to have done that in 20 minutes to be able to hit the 4-minute K pace or whatever. So, but
is there pros and cons to that? Do more experienced runners not look at their watch very often? What's sort of like the mentality or like thought behind that in the running community?
It's different, interesting. I think the elites would be tracking to a certain pace and watching it. But then you've got other runners who are sort of it's in different sorts of races. You'll see there's very tactical races. A lot of the Olympics races are very tactical, where the Kenyans or the Ethiopians are speed up, slow down, just try and break the pack up. So it's not based on time. It's about getting that gold medal. Yeah. Whereas marathons at the world marathons, they're very much follow on the clock and trying to either break a world record or
get themselves a PB.
Yeah, that's right. So horses for courses, I reckon. Shorter track races, whilst you're still chasing a time, you're usually just trying to win the bloody race. So you don't have time to watch the clock.
Yeah. What do you think sort of the survival kit stuff that you recommend people get fairly early on in their running journey versus some of the stuff you see people commit to getting sooner than they probably need?
So there's probably a few things. I mean, it's getting the right runner that sort of suits you. And for me, I think one of the things that I learnt over those early years was having different runners for different sorts of training. So your long everyday training, you don't do your speed session in the same runner because they're a lot heavier. So, there's lightweight trainers you can get to do some of the faster stuff. You get your shoe that you're going to race in. Don't race in brand new shoes. Make sure you've tried them out before you go.
Is that wearing in the cushion, or is that just more like being comfortable?
Making sure they don't rub in certain places. There's nothing worse. I've had mates that bought new shoes the day of the marathon and had blisters on the back of their heels and ran the whole half the marathon with blood pouring out of the toes and heels of their brand new runners. When they had the ones they'd worn in sitting in their bag back at the hotel. So for me, the survival kit for me is all about the gear that you're going to wear and making sure that it's comfortable for race day. But in terms of some race day tips for me, it's it sounds a bit harsh or rude, but Band-Aids on the nipples. If you don't put Band-Aids on your nipples,
They'll bleed.
They bleed. It's the most painful thing. Once you start sweating up, if there's any sort of rubbing, it just, there's been races where you see people in the race and they've got blood stains. Chafe stick. There's chafing just can destroy your race, but between the legs, under the arms. So there's some really good chafe sticks you can get to sort of help with that. Good running socks. People just put some cheap socks on. That just makes a massive difference if you get some really good socks.
What's your go-to brands? Because I've tried, my favourite at the moment is the 2XU socks.
I use Steigen. Steigen is a local, I think the guy in Geelong somewhere might have started it up. They are amazing, just nice, lightweight, thin, but there's no rubbing. So I've got through whole marathons with just wearing those socks and not add blisters, ideally. So there's probably a few hints and tips for the beginner.
Well, let's get into now, I guess. We're doing the Run for the Kids race at the end of March.
Yep.
We've got a bunch of people doing it. I'm sure there's other people as well, but a lot of people are doing that run. And then maybe people have goals throughout the year around running, around maybe doing a marathon, things like that. I want to go into like each of the sort of steps or recommendations you have around like preparing yourself for any sort of race like this and setting the goal. So the first one I want to go to sort of, I guess the first thing is sort of, well, how do you sort of, you've set yourself a goal, but generally those goals, if it's a marathon, a half marathon, if you've never run before and you want to do something, how do you break that down? Because I think a lot of times with goals, when you set this very out there goal, do you break it down into smaller chunks? Like, how do you go about that process and making it not so daunting and overwhelming to begin, right?
Yep. So there's the preparation. For me, it's key to mentally prepare for what you're trying to achieve. Because if I take the marathon as a really great example of preparation, mentally and physically, because it's such a long lead-in time, and you've got to work back from that race day start line to what you need to do to get there, to even get there to start with, because training for a marathon is, if you getting to the start line is probably half the challenge, because you've got all of this hard training to do in the meantime, which includes all of those, the speed sessions, the longer training runs, and building up your Ks and preparing, and so breaking that down into sort of some achievable mid targets along the way is crucial. So even training for Run for the Kids, you're not going to just turn up and run 14 Ks on the day.
I mean, we did that last year.
And do it well.
we did not well.
Do it well. So it's not such a big lead-in time, but you've got to start thinking, well, what do I need to do to be able to, first of all, be able to run 14 Ks, but if I want to run it fast, how do I need to improve my speed over the time? So bring it back down into those small, achievable targets along the way. For a marathon, it's 16 weeks. So you have weekly training plans where I mapped out in a spreadsheet my sessions that I needed to do, and as the more I did them, every time I did a marathon or preparing for a marathon, I'd have those same sessions scheduled in for the same period out from the race day.
You essentially created a recipe that you could just keep
using.
Yeah,
that's it.
Do you think it's very, like, was that custom for you, or did you feel like
it was customized over time? Really, it was using the group's the insights and the learnings and the advice from that group structure, knowing what worked for them and sort of taking bits and pieces that suited me and putting them into my plan. But also, some of those sessions you did with the group as well. So because you'd have wasn't just me training for that same marathon. So we'd have a group of us that train together. So that that sort of thing's key, is being able to, if you've got a shared goal, you can sort of share the experience and the training sessions leading into it. So preparation is key, but also mental preparation, sort of being able to sort of visualise what you want to achieve and sort of not trying to remove the anxiety from the unknown of what you're going to put yourself through. It's not easy to do, but getting your mind in the right space. And part of that again is the training, the physical training that you're doing in the lead up is trusting that because you've been able to get through some of those hard sessions, that it's meaning that race day you don't have to have that anxiety there because you've prepared. And so that's probably the breaking that the preparation down into sort of achievable targets. But then during the race itself, I think there's that you've also then got to be able to break that down into small chunks as well, because if you just sort of focus on, well, I've still got 41 Ks to go and I'm already feeling buggered, you're never going to get to 42 Ks. You're probably not going to finish. But if you're sort of focusing on those five, as I said, I focus on those 5K splits. Other people do K by K. But it also helps if you know the course as well. So if you know where it's going to be hilly and where it's going to be some downhill and where it's going to be flat, you can sort of, part of the preparation is also trying to understand the layout of the land. Run for the kids. If you're going to be running over, Bolte Bridge, there's a steep hill there. You don't try and maintain the same pace that you were running, down the hill through the tunnel or whatever. You adjust your actual race into small chunks as well to say, well, I know I'm going to lose some pace going up the hill, so I'll back off there, because if I don't, I'm going to get to the top and I'm going to blow up. But then I know I've got some downhill. Then I can pick up the pace there and try and get a bit back. Being smart about your racing and sort of saying, well, don't go out too fast. People get caught up in the hype of the start line. If you look down your first K and said, how the hell have I done a 3-minute K when I'm supposed to be doing 350s? It's because you've caught up in it. But that can come back to bite you later on as well. So build yourself into the race and sort of hold yourself back is critical as well to ensure that you actually can get to the finish line and finish strong.
Do you, I think a lot of people, especially in those longer races, they hit like the wall,
yes,
which is a fairly common thing, right? Do you continue to stick to your own sort of 5K, like, just looking at the next 5K sort of ahead? Or do you have to sort of change your mentality when that sort of wall, when you hit that wall and maybe break it down even further, or does it stay consistent throughout the race?
The wall's an interesting thing. It's a part of the wall is about how you've prepared. So I hit the wall in my first marathon, that 3:36. I was powering along, thought I was feeling really great, and the Melbourne Marathon then ran from Frankston to Albert Park, and just straight line, lots of rolling hills through Black Rock and all that sort of stuff. And I got to just Elstonwick there, where you sort of come just past North Road, and you sort of start coming around a lot through Elstonwick and Elwood and along there. And I was feeling great, like 32 Ks in, I'm flying like, hey, not far to go now, you'll be right, mate. And then all of a sudden, bang, literally, it was, the wall is called that for a reason, actually just flying along to shit, not being able to move, cramping up. I was cramping in the hamstring, so I'd stop to stretch them, and my quad had cramps. So I'm, trying to stretch that out. My hammy would go again, and I'm hobbling along, calves are cramping. And the last 10 Ks was just brutal. Just stop, start. And so that for me was hitting the wall. But what I found through all of the training then for my next one in 2010 and 2011, so I never hit the wall in a marathon again, because I'd done the right training. I had done the right carb loading, so I got, my 2.5 days leading in, I got the right sort of fuel into the body. I fueled during the run properly, so we had a really great support group out in the course, handing us gels and drinks every 7 or so K. So making sure that was continuing to fuel the body during the run carbs as well as fluids. And just that long-term sort of built-up muscle strength meant that I never sort of got to the point where I couldn't continue to go at a fast pace. I certainly slowed down, but 350s might have become 355s, 4s in the last 3 or 4 Ks, but never to the point where I felt that I'd sort of couldn't go on or couldn't maintain that sort of running gait and sort of so that for me the wall really comes down to preparing and racing the right way and doing the right things before and during.
Yeah, I think that's the fueling and hydration stuff. I mean, I think a lot of people kind of know that they probably should do that, but they don't really know the specifics. So, I mean, is there something that's sort of like the gold standard, like the rule book you should stick to for any of these long races, particularly in the preparation? You mentioned carb loading. Are there rules around like what you should be doing with that around the distance, or is there a certain distance before that becomes important?
Yeah. I think probably anything under a half marathon, you probably don't need to. I think the shorter, it's about making sure that the night before you've got some carbs into the system and don't eat too much in the morning of. So my go-to before any race day is 2 or 3 slices of white toast with some honey and a cup of black tea. The black tea gives you some caffeine without the milk sitting in your guts, but nothing that's going to sit in your guts and sort of make you feel bloated or that's going to sort of churn up when you start racing. But and the night before, just some carbs to sort of.
Well, what sort of carbs do you sort of recommend?
I usually just went for a pasta. So when I'm carb loading, it's lots of rices and pastas and soft drinks and things like that.
So it's a bit of a combination of those sugar type carbs and then the slower, lower glycemic sort of carbs as well that will get you through, that will stay in your system for a decent amount of time.
That's right. So, when you get to the 33K mark is usually when you've depleted your supplies and you're sort of running on sort of low fuel. And that's where it's, during the run, it's very critical right from the start to be taking in some carbs in terms of a gel. My go-to is sort of like a little pop-top drink bottle with and it helps if you've got someone out there passing these things to you. Otherwise, you wear a fuel belt, wear a backpack with a fuel in it or whatever. But having some carbs in the drink as well, like a half-strength Gatorade rather than full strength because it's a bit strong. But I just water it down a bit and so every like 5 to 7 Ks during a marathon, I'd have a pop top of drink that I wouldn't scull. I'd just sort of sip it as I was running and then toss it aside, and a gel every 10 Ks just to sort of keep the carbs coming into the system. The shorter stuff, for me, 10 Ks or under, sometimes I don't even take a drink. It's just head down, bum up. But others, if you get to the point where you're thirsty in a race, you haven't been drinking enough to that point because you're already sort of
at that point it's too late.
You've always dehydrated yourself, and that's when seeing the result of dehydration in a race situation for people is pretty gruesome in terms of the way it affects their body. So it's critical to take some in. Before, not too much, but keep it up during the run.
Okay.
Is it sort of more so about the amount of time you're spending on the course as well, right? Because for you, like 33 Ks is coming at a certain point, and for someone else, 33 Ks is coming, to them twice as longer.
Agree.
So
it is. Yeah. So I wouldn't base it on for me, it's every 7 Ks because I know I'm going to be at 7 Ks after. So it's almost like every half an hour for me.
Yeah. That's what I've heard. The rule of thumb is for gels and hydration. Sorry, for gels. Yeah, every half hour, sort of. Yeah.
Yeah. probably good. Yeah, it's probably good measurement rather than the distance.
Yeah.
In terms of, I guess, the last question around, preparing for a race, you mentioned earlier around like making sure you have a plan with your pacing and you're doing these hard runs and things. Well, at what point in the process are you determining the pace you are going to run for the event? And like, what are you basing that off of?
Good question. Doing races during the preparation is critical. Well, when I say critical, if you want to run a marathon at a certain time, then there's a good rule of thumb that a half marathon, double that and add 10 to 15 minutes is what your marathon's likely to be. And similarly, if you want to run a half marathon at 2 hours, then do a 10K, double it and add a bit, and that's so always factoring in some shorter races during that preparation. Like park run is just like a fantastic, perfectly measured 5K course in a race situation, even though park run's not a race. It's raced. You can do one of them every week. You don't need to recover from doing a 5K race, park run, right? So you can go out and park run as part of your training, even before you get to starting your marathon training, and you get a very good idea of what you're capable of running. There's also some really good online race time calculators where you can pretty much just plug in, if you're running 5Ks at 20 minutes, put in 5K 20 minutes, and it'll project out what your likely 10, half, full marathon times could be if you're comfortably running that 5K time. You still got to do the training. You're not just going to be able to run a 20-minute.
Where my head went is like,
Yeah.
people don't realise that like just because you can do 5K, maybe they do, but
Correct.
it doesn't mean you can do 10 at that time. It means
No.
if you're capable of doing 10,
Correct. Yes.
it means your 10 should be roughly that time.
Correct.
Yeah.
But you've still got to put in the work, the training work, to be able to run the 10Ks at that 10K pace.
Yeah.
But it gives you a goal, a target of then, well, what sort of training times do you need to be hitting?
You can extrapolate the rest of your plan. Yeah.
Correct.
Right. Based on that.
Right.
And I suppose the other one would be, tapping back into that group mentality of, talking to people with experience and taking on advice around, what your capabilities are and what you should be doing to improve is critical as well.
You don't need to learn every lesson the hard way.
Well, you don't need to teach yourself or learn all of the lessons just through your own experience, and Googling and stuff. Just tap into people that have got the experience to sort of help guide you.
Well, you've been part of a running group for a really long time at this stage. Have you noticed any sort of how has that community changed or over time? I mean, compared to nowadays, have you noticed any differences there?
Massive. So it was very male-driven culture back in the early 2000s. There wasn't many females running at that. Certainly in the training group that I was in, we had a membership of about 70. There was 2 or 3 females. Very male-dominated, sort of hard training, elite sort of level runners in it. And we struggled to attract females, and it was, even the racing on the weekends, it was, very male-dominated cross country and stuff. What changed was parkrun. I think it came to Australia in 2010 or 2011. All of a sudden, you had this organised running event in your own backyard where you could just, literally within a kilometre of where you lived, in a lot of cases, just be able to, walk, drive to the start line. You just had these. It was bringing people out of their homes. They could do the run, they could walk it, whatever, socialise, and go back home, and the rest of the day, they had the rest of their Saturday to sort of get on with their weekend. So that shifted the dynamic of that male-dominated culture to very much females all of a sudden realised they enjoyed running, they enjoyed the social aspects of it, and they were coming out in big numbers. And what that meant was that when they realised they enjoyed running, they were then looking to improve their running. Yeah. So they were joining the running groups. So the midday milers we had this massive uptick in membership. We went from 70, we were stuck on 70 for so many years in the sort of late 2000s. All of a sudden we had 200, 240. Instead of 2 or 3 females, we had 30 or 40. And they were coming along and they were good runners. And then they were joining the athletics club and they were starting to race. And so all of a sudden this sort of male-dominated culture had to adjust, even the language we were using and the sort of the culture within the training group had to change because it was no longer male, just blokes having a chat. It was you had to change the way you sort of behaved just as part of the training group, and I think that sort of showed the females that it was an inviting group. There was a really good social framework that that was in place, and then that sort of continued to build through park runs now to the point where Albert Park is getting upwards of 1,000 every Saturday morning. Some days they get 1,300, 1,400.
Is that just the park run?
Just the park run.
Yeah.
That's the
Is
power.
it just lowered the entry point into to running, right? Yeah.
And so what it's meant though is, and I think the other thing that's changed since then was we had COVID, and we all don't want to remember that, but I think what that did was people, certainly in Melbourne, probably not so much in other states, but when we were in such a lockdown environment, people had that 1 hour outside. You couldn't, go out 5Ks outside your radius. But people got outside and started running in bigger numbers than pre-COVID. So when we were opened up again, they built this habit of running just because they were going out and doing something around the neighbourhood. Yeah. So they then joined Parkrun. And so Parkrun, when we opened back up again, Parkrun numbers grew even further. But also what happened is that they were doing these, doing a lot of training. So they were all of a sudden into the habit of, and then sort of motivated to start going out and doing the fun runs. That then has meant that they then had this next dream of parkrun's no longer good enough. I need to run a marathon. So now we've got Melbourne Marathon. Before COVID, used to sell out. It never sold out. I could get to race day and there was still, only 5,000 people. Now it's selling out within a day of opening up, 6 months out or more from marathon day, because people have moved from, getting the love for running during COVID because it gave them a reason to get out of the house, to running parkrun and enjoying that so much that the next sort of progression has been, I want to run a marathon. And once they've run a marathon, they want to run another marathon. So it's very hard to get into the Melbourne Marathon now as a result.
Any of the marathons.
Yeah.
Like it's awesome. Yeah, I think
it's not just in Australia too. I think it's worldwide. Yeah. There's been this massive running. And I think, you look at the female numbers, it's 50-50 now in the marathons. There's ladies, females just in big numbers, which is fantastic. So that's probably the biggest change I've seen is that cultural shift from a male-dominated environment to very much running's for everyone.
Beautiful. I think that covers all the questions we had around running. I thought we'd have just a random closer question. I don't know if you could come up with something for this one.
I've got one.
You've got one as well?
Yeah.
All right, we'll get Dad's first. And then I don't know if I even have one myself. I didn't think I'd have to answer this question that I came up with. Dumbest way you've been hurt doesn't have to be related to running.
For me, it's a no-brainer. Dumbest way I've been hurt was when I rode into a tree on my cycle because I was trying to avoid being pecked by a magpie at 30 k's an hour. It was life-changing. It was dumb because I could have just stopped. I could have just got off the bike and let the magpie go on its merry way, but I tried to ride away from it. So changed my life in 2021 where I sort of ended up in hospital for 3 weeks with lots of broken bones and, you could have died quite easily if, a few millimetres one way or the other. I think that was pretty dumb, but, it sort of changed my life in a lot of good ways as well because it made me appreciate the the things that I may not have appreciated as much before the accident, and gave me a new sort of passion for living for the moment, enjoying life to the fullest.
Any closing moments or anything we didn't cover that you think is vital advice for new runners? I feel, that anything you missed.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just make sure you're passionate about it. And if you are, then make sure you can do things to keep yourself motivated. Otherwise, you're not going to enjoy it. So run for the kids coming up. It's a great course. You're running on infrastructure that you don't normally get to sort of go on. So just go out there. Set yourself a target and prepare the right way and enjoy it. Otherwise, it's not worth doing.
All right. I think that was a lot of good knowledge in there and a lot of good tips. Let's wrap it up for today. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Our first real guest podcast. So
We might get famous from this one.
yeah.
It's a good take off.
Sure. Let's go with that. All right. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks very much.
See you next week.
Yep.